Right before we jump into this video, if you haven't signed up for the FroKnowsPhoto email list, just look for this orange box over on the website, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I will send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a review of the Nikon P1000 point and shoot camera with a massive mega 3000 millimeter zoom. Now, before I get into all of the specs, at first, when Nikon announced this camera, I was like, who is this monstrosity for? Who wants a massive camera that's a point and shoot for $1,000 that has a 3000 millimeter zoom that doesn't fit in my pocket and has a cell phone size sensor in it? I was like, I don't get who this is for. But then I used it, and now I know who it's for, and that's what I want to share with you in this review, is who this camera is for, based on the image quality, based on the video quality, and other ideas and thoughts for how you could use this camera if this is something that you want to pick up. Now, what did I do to shoot it? Kind of took it out into the real world, and by kind of, I mean I went to the Phillies game, because that is a situation where somebody who has this camera would want to take it to the game with them. I bought tickets. I was in row 7, section 135, so I was pretty darn close to try and zoom in to get the batters in the batter's box, to get the pitcher, and work around all of the other people that were sitting there in the stands. If you'd like to download sample raw files that I shot out at the Phillies game, you can go ahead and download them at the link below, put them into Lightroom, and play with them to see if you like the quality. This is a point and shoot camera, so you can expect point and shoot quality out of it. But let's look at the physical camera itself. It is large. It weighs 3.1 pounds. It is pretty heavy and chody and has a massive zoom. And by the way, as you zoom it, watch what happens. It tilts forward. You can feel the balance shift. As you come back, it tilts back. Forward, it tilts forward. Because look, that's how massive this zoom range is. On the back of this camera, you have a rotatable screen. I almost said touch screen, but it is not a touch screen. They chimped out and wanted to save money by not putting in a touch screen, but it rotates. You know, selfie mode. No, you're not using this thing for a selfie mode. So you have a screen like that. The zoom speed, it's kind of slow. You can hear it zooming. It's not the fastest thing in the world. You've got a massive flash here on top that pops up and needs to clear the range. If the zoom is out, you're going to end up getting you're not going to be able to use the flash anyway if it's super long distance away. On the side of the camera, you have other controls. So if you're photographing birds at a distance, you could zoom with here. It's a little smoother. They do have a remote control as well. You have a snap zoom function that will pull it back to where you want it just when you press the button. And then when you let it go, it will zoom back out. So in case you're trying to follow a bird and the bird's moving, you're like, where'd the bird go? And you're like, the bird's the word. And you go like this. You zoom back, you take your finger off, and it zooms back in. In terms of build quality, it feels chintzy, plasticky, kind of cheap. I mean, this isn't something you want to drop or bang around. But again, remember, it's a $1,000 point and shoot. It takes one SD card down here on the bottom. Let me open up that door right here. And it takes also a super small battery. This is the teeny tiny battery that it takes. I got through about 6 innings plus an extra hour of shooting beforehand or just having it on, zooming in and out at the ball game. But I would highly suggest you have at least 2 of these. Now, keep in mind, you can charge this camera up. Hold on, I got to get the battery in there. You can charge it through USB. Now, with that being said, the only way you can charge it when you purchase it is with the cable that is included to plug into the side of the camera, because there is no charger that it comes with. It doesn't come with a physical battery charger, which I rather have. You have to buy that separate, where you plug it into the wall, pop a battery into it, and then you charge it. I don't like having to charge something inside the camera, because now that's an extra cable that somebody could trip over or pull it off a desk. A kid could just knock it off a desk if it's sitting there. I'm just not a big fan of having to charge it that way. I like having a physical charger to do that. Now, there is an electronic viewfinder on the back, because this is technically a mirrorless camera. I love electronic viewfinders. You have an electronic viewfinder right here that's nice and clear and sharp, but what I will say is when you are changing your settings in the camera, if you're shooting manual, it is slow and delayed. I can change my aperture, I can change my ISO, I can change my shutter speed in the manual modes, and then at some point the camera decides to catch up to the changes that I've made. I've tried to make quick changes when shooting and then ended up being overexposed because the camera didn't compensate quick enough for the changes that I made. Maybe it's just a slow computer and it just has some mice in there that are running super slow and they just need to speed up. But now let's move on to the specs. This camera has a 24 to 3000 millimeter zoom that goes from 2.8 to f8 and does have VR built in. Now, I'm pretty sure it has it built in because it says VR, EDVR right on the front of the lens. They didn't market this anywhere that says vibration reduction that isn't just digital. Now, it does have digital VR as well as VR built in. From my experience, it was super steady and super still, even out at 3000 millimeters. Think about this, 24 on the wide, 3000 on the deep end. That is so much further than you're ever gonna get with any type of DSLR or any mirrorless camera with any lens that you can put on it, or a cell phone for that matter. This is a massive zoom. There's trade-offs that come with that. Now, with that being said, this is a 125x zoom, or if you go into the digital zoom, it's now a 250x zoom, which is 3000 to 8000 millimeters. I highly recommend that you never use digital zoom. It's in essence just cropping your 16 megapixel sensor that you have in here already. It's gonna crop it even further, which is gonna cut down on the quality. You're just zooming in on pixels. 3000 millimeters is enough. If you want 8000 to see Saturn at a distance, which this camera can actually do, because on YouTube, people seem to love videos showing the mega zoom with somebody zooming in on something like Saturn to see the rings. It's insane that you can do that. Since I mentioned the image sensor, you have a 16 megapixel 1/2.3 inch BSI CMOS sensor. Now, if that sounds small to you, it is. It's in essence the same size sensor that you will find in most cell phones. The difference is it's not a cell phone. Hello, Nikon, are you in there? Yeah, it's cell phone quality with mega zoom capability, so that, like I said, there are definitely trade-offs, and we're gonna see that when we get into the image quality. ISO range is 100 to 6400, which sounds amazing for a camera with a larger sensor, but when you do a 100 to 6400 ISO capability in a camera like this, it's not so amazing. Because even at 100 ISO, when you zoom in on a subject, you can see the noise structure, you can see the grain. It isn't very good, even at 100 ISO. Imagine what it's gonna look like at 400, 800, 1600, and then Swiss cheese mode at 6400 ISO. Now, you do have the ability to shoot 4K UHD video, which we're gonna show you a montage later, as well as some samples. I love the video, and I'm gonna get into that more when we get to the video section, but I really loved being able to zoom in on everything, and at the game, it felt like I was watching TV. In essence, I like to call these modern day binoculars because they're image stabilized. I can zoom in on whatever I want and be able to see it. Remember that, modern day binoculars. Oh, that have the ability to shoot video and take basically crappy cell phone quality photos, but at least you have the ability to reach out and touch someone from a massive distance and really far away. I mentioned that it's 3.1 pounds. I also want to mention that it is a $1,000 point-and-shoot camera. In the grand scheme of things, I think people really are interested in this camera. Now, the reason I say that is when you search the P1000 on YouTube, there's millions of views for this camera. There's a lot of reviews at different camera stores to show you that people have bought it and are enjoying what it gives them the ability to do. Now, one of the reasons they love it is that it has a moon mode on the dial. Yeah, moon mode. You turn the dial to moon mode and you're like, hey, look, moonbeam, you're at a distance. it basically sets the settings for how you should shoot the moon. Now, when Steven took it home to test out shooting the moon, he still had to go into manual mode because the auto mode just didn't look as good in terms of the exposure. Now, my question to everybody out there is, yeah, it's really impressive to zoom in and shoot the moon at 3,000 millimeters. It's incredible. How many times do you need to shoot the freaking moon with a camera like this? It's going to get old fairly quick. It's kind of a gimmick. Next to the gimmick moon mode, you do have the bird mode. The bird is the word. There's a lot of people that love birding. They like sitting in their backyard and zooming in on the cardinals and the hummingbirds and the blue jays and the kingfishers and the kingbirds, all these different birds, larks and starks, and I don't know. There's a lot of birds in there in the world. This is a fun camera for spotting birds because you can zoom in without scaring them and take pictures and take video. Again, cell phone quality pictures. But if that's all you want to do is share with, Wilma down the street, hey, Wilma, I got a picture of the bird. You want me to text it to you? That's what Wilma wants to see, the bird that you captured at a distance. Let me jump in here real quick and say, would you like to take better pictures in only 11 days? Well, I created a free mini video course that you can sign up for at FroKnowsPhoto.com/11 days. So basically, those are all the specs that I'm going to share with you because this camera, for all intents and purposes, is meant to be shot in auto, unless for whatever reason you know how to get out of auto and you can control the camera. Most people purchasing this don't care about taking quality photos, to be honest with you. They just love the fact that there's a mega zoom, you put it in auto, and you're gonna get pretty good results. So now let's jump into the stills section where I can show you some more stills that I captured, as well as give you some feedback about what it was like shooting out at the Phillies game. So I know I said that most people using this camera will shoot in auto, but I'm not most people. I wanted to shoot it in RAW, and the only way that you can shoot RAW is if you get out of the auto modes. That means going into P, S, A, or M, you can unlock more of the menu system, which is fully locked up when you're in the auto modes. So I went in, I changed it to RAW only, which gives you an NRW file. It's not even a .NEF, which is what they normally give you, but at least it gives me the ability to shoot RAW. Now, like I said earlier, this is a glorified cell phone camera. The image quality is very similar to what you're going to find in a cell phone, just slightly better because you have better optics and a bigger zoom, so you can do things with this that you can't do with a cell phone. Because if you're sitting in the stands, you're going to get a great picture of the person in front of you, or a 2x zoom, which is going to get you to 3 people in front of you. With this, check this out. Look at this photo. This is before the game. I am all the way in dead center field, the furthest away you can get into the bleachers. So it's roughly 500 or more feet away from home plate. This is what it looks like at 24 millimeters. And when we zoom in, that right there is 3,000 millimeters zoomed in on home plate. All of this is handheld with VR on in the camera. Now, it's pretty incredible that you can reach out and grab a photo from that far away. But remember, as you zoom in, you are dropping the aperture. It's going to f8 at the longest side. That means if you're not in a bright light situation, light bright, oh man, I loved light bright. If you're not in a bright situation, it's going to become more and more difficult to get clean and nice shots, especially with such a small cell phone sensor. But in the everyday world, in a bright situation where your kids are playing sports or you're outside, this camera is going to help you get okay photos. I keep saying okay because, again, not the greatest quality. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Here's a photo where I'm zoomed in on the camera. It says 84 millimeters, but you multiply it by 5.5x. So multiply 85 by 5.5 to get what the equivalent for 35 millimeter equivalents would be. And here, this is 100 ISO. And as you zoom in on the guy, it's like, meh. It's okay. You can see the grain structure in his face. One of the issues I had right off the bat was there's only 2 focus modes. You have AFS, which is single focus mode, and you have AFF, which is the full-time focus, which decides whether it wants to be continuous or single. I didn't have an option for continuous AF, which is what I want to shoot sports at. So I had to rely on the AFF mode, which did a pretty good job, except for the fact when we got Bryce Harper here in the batter's box, and I'm zoomed in again. This is 155 millimeters on this camera, and on the screen you can see what its equivalency is in 35 millimeters, and I'm in the continuous AFF on this. And I can't tell if energy transfer in the background is in focus, because Citizens Bank Park certainly looks in focus behind him in the dugout. It looks like it backed focused. But then when you zoom in on him, you're like, well, the helmet looks like it's sharp and clear. It's nice that you actually have all the reflections of the sky and the stands and the lights. So remember that this is at f8 on a cell phone camera, a cell phone sensor, which is this small. It's not the same as f8 on a DSLR. You have to multiply that by some astronomical number as well, and probably be at f22 equivalency to 35 millimeter, if not more. So basically, you're not compressing the background. Same thing, next picture. I was able to get him swinging. I was able to freeze the motion because I had to speed up my shutter speed. What was I at here? I was at 1/1250th of a second at 6.3 at ISO 400. Now, yeah, I had to speed it up because when I went to program mode, it was giving me 1/125th of a second at 100 ISO at 6.3, and that's too slow for capturing motion. So yeah, there's a sports mode in the camera, but I didn't want to use it. I wanted to manually control this myself. So again, if you know what you're doing, you can definitely pull results out of the camera. If you don't and you're just relying on the auto modes, you have to make sure you're in the right auto mode when you're shooting, because the sports mode should probably do a pretty good job of speeding up the shutter speed. I also went in there and limited the ISO from 100 to 800 because I didn't want it to go beyond 800, and basically all the photos stayed at 400 ISO throughout the night, or throughout the day. I tried using that auto ISO feature, but the same thing here. Look at the guys in the dugout. They look like they're in focus. You see how when you use a smaller sensor, you don't get that depth of field look? Whereas I went back and pulled out an image I did a year before. This was done with a 600 millimeter lens, probably on the Nikon D4 or D5 at the time. It's like $16,000 worth of gear, but look at the difference. When you look at the blown out background from the dugout where I was shooting versus where I was sitting to photograph Bryce Harper, you can definitely finally see the difference. But for people that are used to cell phone quality, to be able to sit, look at this. This is where I was sitting in the stands, beyond third base. To be able to zoom in and make it seem like I was at the game, like I'm in the dugout professionally shooting, which I wasn't. I was just a fan who bought a ticket for this game. How incredible is it to be able to zoom in and get a clear shot of the batter right here? Now, in terms of shooting, if you hold the button down, it goes click, 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 click. 7 shots in a row before it fills the buffer, and it writes really slow. And I was just shooting raw. And I thought, okay, well, JPEG should probably be able to shoot more than 7 frames in a row before filling the buffer. No, it can't. Snap. Anyway, it can't. It's still 7 frames in JPEG, and you can't do anything while it's writing. You can't go into the menu. You can't change things. You can't shoot more. It's got to finish writing. So just know that if you take 7 frames in a row, your camera is going to lock up until it's done writing those images to the card. Now let me show you what 3000 millimeter zoom looks like. So I'm going to go back to this image of Miles Kennedy. He is the official photographer for the Philadelphia Phillies. His father, Rusty Kennedy, was very integral into my getting out of auto the first time. Awesome story. I love Rusty. Rusty was an old-time AP photographer, big in Philly. Well, Miles is now the Phillies photographer and has been since before they won the World Series in 2008. He's shooting with a D4. He's using like a 600 or a 400 millimeter 2.8. This is 3000 millimeters. As we zoom in on the picture, you can see the quality isn't very good. The further you zoom in, the less the quality is perceived to be good, in my opinion, when you zoom in. A lot of it can be some of the air currents that are moving that create some wobbles in the air. I mean, you see that when Steven was trying to shoot the moon, it looks like it's sharp, but it's really not, especially when you see the video, because you can see the air currents moving. It's the moon. It's that many miles, it's that many miles away. I forget, it's like 51 million. I forget. It was a good question on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire that the guy won $1 million on. But you can see that the quality isn't very good. But what other camera is going to give you a 3,000 millimeter zoom? Now, I equated something to this Bryce Harper photo when I checked the distance. It's like 900 millimeter equivalent zoom. The only way you could have done a 900 millimeter equivalent zoom would be to use a crop sensor camera like a Nikon D500 and put on there something like a Tamron 150 to 600, and you multiply it by the 1.5 and you're close to 900 millimeter equivalent. But that's much larger than this, and it's also a lot more expensive to get that entire setup. Moving on, I decided to go upstairs in the stadium. I sat in my seats for a couple of Bryce Harper's at-bats so I could shoot some photos and videos. By the way, the video section is still coming up, so bear with me. We will get there. I wanted to go upstairs to change the angle, and I was amazed that I went to just the left of home plate, and I was able to get the picture just like this. This one is shot at 1/1600th at 5.6 at 400 ISO, 155 millimeters again, which multiply it by 5.5 to get the equivalent. I still am not sure if everything is in focus or back focused, or this is just the nature of a cell phone size sensor that you can never tell if something is truly sharp or truly in focus. Because I can't tell, is it the ground? Is it not? But is his face, is he not in, the Phillies logo looks to be in focus. Snapshots. You're getting snapshots from this camera. That's, in essence, you're not going to capture photographs, you're going to capture moments, but they're snapshots. Just know that going into it. You're not buying this camera for amazing image quality. You're just not. Same thing. Love this angle, was able to get a nice shot from up there, good timing. Just an amazing angle that you wouldn't have gotten without a camera like this being able to be versatile and zoom in. So I was still amazed. Oh, yeah, this is 3,000 millimeters zoomed in on the back of the pitcher's mound just to see what you could get. Zoom out just a little bit, you get some cool composition. I just like this photo. That's why I'm showing this one. Same thing, another pitcher photo. I was basically going for the shadow under his legs. That's what I wanted to capture. And we're almost done there, but check out the batter here from the same place. Being able to get the ball in there, 1/1250th of a second, it basically froze it in time, so it's good to be able to go ahead and do that. But these aren't exquisite type images. Snapshots. Would you like to purchase this camera, any other camera, or would you like to trade in some gear that you have used for some cash? Well, head on over to adorama.com/fro. When you use that link, it helps support us to continue to make this free, fun, and informative content. Again, go to adorama.com/fro. But check this out. This is where I then moved in the stadium, really far away from home plate. Then zoomed in and got this shot. Not a great shot, not saying it's a great shot, just showing that you can zoom in and capture a moment like this. That's the incredible thing. So if you expect to get quality images from this, no, just expect to get cell phone quality images, which in my opinion is terrible, but for most people out there, they're happy with their cell phone pictures. Remember, I did this picture of the batter with $16,000 worth of gear. You can see the difference in quality and the background versus the Bryce Harper one of him batting. It looks like you took a screen grab from TV. Now, to wrap up this section, how is it for shooting photos? Fine? It's okay. I wouldn't expect to get a lot of quality out of it, especially as the light drops. If you are shooting early morning and you're trying to get nature photos, probably not going to look good with still shots or trying to get those birds. Just remember, in low light situations or indoors, this camera is basically going to be useless in those situations as it pertains to stills. But for video, I loved it for video. Now take a look at this montage, and then we'll come back to talk about the video features. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never get back, for it's root for the home team, or the Phillies. If they don't win, it's a shame, for it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Let's score some runs. That's what Harry Carey used to say. So that was cool, right? You wouldn't have known that that was taken with this P1000 if you didn't know that I was shooting this with the P1000. Because what it felt like to me when I was out there shooting photos and shooting video, which I spent more time shooting video because I realized early on that the quality of the images weren't going to be great and it wasn't as much fun. Well, shooting video felt like I was watching TV. That's where the modern day binoculars idea came from, because I was able to reach out and see things that I would have only been able to see if I was at home watching TV. The quality of it with the 4K made it seem like I was sitting at home watching TV, or that it was a broadcast style camera. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was for the video. It's not as good as a DSLR with better glass on it because most things are still in focus, but for a camera like the $1,000 to give me the zoom and the reach that I was able to get, to reach out and sit in the stands and zoom in all the way across the stands and see a kid up there waving or just people, that's insane. Think about the use for that type of video. Are you a birder? Are you somebody who's going to go whale watching? Are you traveling the world and you just want to reach out and grab images or video at a distance? Are your kids playing soccer and you want a modern day camcorder? Because I think this is a modern day camcorder, better than a modern day camcorder because it has a bigger zoom. The focus, tracking subjects going from home plate and then running, the focus did pretty good. You can see it shifting a little bit here and there, but if you're used to cell phone quality video, you're gonna get better results with this, and you're gonna be okay with the quality of video you're getting from this. Now, I shot this in 4K. Now, 4K gives you the ability to shoot at 30 frames as well as 25 frames, which is PAL. I set it to 25 frames because I wanted to get it as cinematic as possible. One thing I didn't notice until after I got the camera back home is that while shooting video in 4K, you have the ability to actually press the shutter button and take 20 stills. Now, they're gonna be just JPEG grabs from the video, but we already know that the photo quality isn't very good to begin with. So if I can shoot video of the players and then take a bunch of still photos at the same time to have stills pulled from it, that's pretty amazing. And also, the zoom microphone, as I zoomed out, it zooms a microphone somewhere, which I can't even find the microphone hole on this camera because I don't know where it is. But there was one Philly batting, and I was all the way in the outfield, and I zoomed in on him, and he hit a home run, the game-winning home run. You can see as I'm panning to track him, there's people's heads getting in the way from cheering because I'm super far away. I'm just standing in the outfield somewhere off to the side, but I'm still able to reacquire him, which it finds focus, as he comes around third base and slaps the third base coach and goes into the home plate to greet his other players. It's picking up focus, and I zoom in even further. I mean, that's not something you could do unless you're really a broadcast camera with a massive, mega, couple $100,000 zoom on it. So that was something that blew me away and kind of said that this is a modern day camcorder. The type of thing that if you want to travel and you want to get cool video that you can reach out where other people could never reach different results, well, this is kind of pretty good for doing that. But the point I wanted to make about the zoom in microphone is the fact that it was picking up things that I personally couldn't even hear. I didn't hear the play-by-play calling that was going on.
And Rios comes second. Here's the pitch. Swinging a foul back. They get a piece of catch to go with the breaking ball.
It didn't pick up all the people right around me, but it picked up some cool ambient noise and ambient sounds from the stadium, and it did it all auto. So I was really happy with what that did. So normally at baseball games, I don't see very well, but having these modern day binoculars in front of my eyes that were image stabilized and I could shoot video and capture photos really made the game enjoyable. And I want to bring it back to the moon video that Steven shot. You can see like you're picking up atmospheric pressure and movements going on, and that's why it just doesn't look as stable. Steven had a little bit of trouble trying to focus on the moon, trying to get the exposure, trying to figure out should image stabilization be on digital or should the VR be on, and either way it basically looked about the same. but I'm still amazed that you can zoom in and get the moon. But I do come back to the fact that it's the moon and it's not really going anywhere. And how many times can you take pictures or video of the moon? If that's what you're looking for, then this is going to be the perfect camera for you, because you don't need a telescope to basically go ahead and put a camera on the back of it. So who is this camera for? The mom, the dad, the old person. And by old person, I mean old people who are traveling that are okay with a 3-pound camera, which some of them may not be because they may not be able to hold it, but they want one camera to allow them to get photos, and photos are going to be okay, but also shoot video. Or you sit in the backyard and you want to capture images of birds or video of birds. This is a modern day camcorder with the ability to take stills. First, I look at it as a video camcorder style camera with the ability to shoot stills, but the stills aren't going to be incredible because they are cell phone quality. At the end of the day, is it worth $1,000? That's for you to determine, because if it checks all those boxes for you, you want to reach out and get images and video at a distance, you want to follow your kid, Johnny, or Jessica, or Jennifer, or Tommy, or Timmy, running around playing soccer at a distance from the stands, you're going to be able to do it with this. So when they first announced it, I didn't get it. When I took it out to the game, I got it. I found out who it's for. It's not really for me as a professional, but for my dad, for other people's dads and moms. It could be the right choice for you. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Don't forget, you can download sample RAW files from this camera to play with. The link is down below. Leave me some comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And that is where I will leave it. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.